Beatles, the ultimate album by album guide, special Rolling Stone edition. Introduction. Revolution. The Beatles became the world's greatest rock and roll band because they had no choice. They were four working class misfits from Liverpool, and they knew nobody would ever notice them if they were merely good. But we'll never know what a merely good Beatles album sounds like, because they only recorded insanely great ones. It was everybody else's great albums that sounded merely good by comparison. If the Beatles had settled for being a singles band, they would have been the best ever, by a mile. Instead, they invented the album as we know it. They approached each one as a long-form artistic adventure, packing more twists, harmonies, jokes, and emotional leaps than anyone could have imagined. All four Beatles kept challenging one another to aim higher, and George Martin kept refusing to say no to their ridiculous ideas. From Please Please Me to Abbey Road, from A Hard Day's Night to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, every Beatles album marks a crucial step forward in their journey, and each one has its own unique personality. So Revolver begins with a 1, 2, 3, 4 count, just as Please Please Me did nearly 4 years earlier. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 years were full of creative explosions to the point where anything sounded possible, as long as there was a Beatle counting off the intro. It was the songs that made the albums, but it was also the albums that made the songs. The Beatles albums were so great that even lesser moments became legendary. When they weren't trying very hard, they still came up with off-the-cuff gems like Yellow Submarine. Sometimes they tried absurdly hard to sound like they weren't trying at all, as in Obladi Oblada somehow took 40 hours to record. Where'd the first 39 go? The throwaways seemed to inspire other bands' entire careers. The power chord thud of She's a Woman sounds like the gem of Black Sabbath. The sex and death harmonies of Babies in Black. That's John and Paul helping invent David Bowie. Crazy as it sounds, before Sgt. Pepper, the albums weren't released in the US in their original forms. Americans didn't hear the full-length UK versions of them until 1987, when they came out on CD. So Beatles for Sale didn't exist in America, because half of it got released on Beatles 65 and the other half on Beatles 6. Some fans get a sentimental kick out of the butchered editions, but for most of us, once on Beatles 6, some fans get sentimental. Once you hear the original, it's hard to pretend Drive My Car isn't on Rubber Soul. For many people, these albums define the 60s, but the Beatles remain the world's favourite band. 40 years after they broke up, 30 years after John Lennon's death, and 10 years after we lost George Harrison, the one anthology was the best-selling album of the 2000s, and little kids got so mental the first time they hear 8 Days a Week. The vast majority of Beatles fans weren't born when the records came out. Yet the power of the music just keeps growing. On these albums, you can hear the Beatles, with their extremely different ideas, and voices and identities, come together to invent something new. The world's been listening ever since.